Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to welcome, we've got some more people coming in. Beth Calloway and some folks from NIDIS and some other folks related to the Interstate Council on Water Policy. We're really grateful to ICWP for becoming a sponsor to this study, which is we look forward to hearing from Beth and others about their reasons for supporting this and interest in the statement of tasks that we have to inform the work of the committee. But I do think it reflects the range of interests and value that folks across the spectrum see in these challenging questions that the committee has been asked to address. Here in the room or on the Zoom, we have the full committee. I'll put a link in the chat to the committee's website, which includes a list. I really don't want to cut into the time that we have to hear and discuss with Beth. So I just want to say thank you again, Beth, and to your group for support for this. And we look forward to this next half hour to converse with you about your interest in this and how we can make sure we're addressing the kind of concerns that you and your constituencies bring to these questions.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. So nice to see you. I see a couple familiar faces, and I'm really honored to have a little bit of time on your agenda. I know there's a lot to tackle here, and I just hope to add a little bit of color to the discussion and happy to answer as many questions as I can, or also offer the opportunity to follow up with our network in case I can't answer them myself. So my name is Beth Calloway. I'm the Executive Director of the Interstate Council on Water Policy, and I'm joined by another board member who is with the Atlanta Regional Commission. His name is Danny Johnson. You'll see his name on the attendee list here. I'll do most of the talking, and if circumstances allow, Danny can certainly weigh in with some thoughts as well. But I prepared a short presentation with information about us and why we're interested in the study. Stephen posed some really good questions about, why do we want to support this very important study, and what are some of the challenges that our network are facing, and then what would we like to see in the outcomes of this report. So I'll cover some of that for you in this presentation. So let me see if I can share my screen, and please let me know if it's not working. You should see a presentation option, and then I'm going to minimize my screen and present from Canva. And this is the first time. I'm sorry, you guys are the guinea pigs for me. So let me get this to the full screen, and we'll go from there. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so some of you may be aware, so the Interstate Council on Water Policy is a national nonprofit association made up of interstate, state, regional, and local water management agencies. We've been around since 1959 and have really touched every aspect of integrated water resource management over the years. And the policy issues that we focus on are really more kind of reflective of the time that we are currently operating in. And so these have changed over the years. But the current policy priorities for the Interstate Council on Water Policy are looking at shared challenges to water resource management. We have expertise from all various disciplines. So we have scientists, we have hydrologists, we have engineers. We also do boast a wide network of planners, administrators, organizational leaders that are all working within the water space. And we really position ourselves to be the voice for those water management agencies at a national scale. And it's really kind of interesting. So some of you might be familiar with the Western States Water Council. That's a similar institution. They've been really set up to, of course, tackle Western water resource issues. And the Interstate Council on Water Policy thinks more of a cross-boundary on a national scale to water management issues at hand. So we get together a couple times a year and we share ideas and expertise on water resource issues. We also provide resources to help train and expand knowledge for our network on issues that we're dealing with. And then we also offer multiple touch points throughout the year to collaborate with one another on these questions at hand. We do have quite an influence and presence in Washington. Each year we get together with the federal executive branch agency leadership and have very productive, great conversations with them about the work that they do and how they relate to our priorities at their state and regional levels. And then also, of course, we interact with Congress as well to help shape national policies. So Stephen asked me to, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, talk about, what is our interest in supporting this study? We are a nonprofit. We don't offer a ton of financial resources. But I do really appreciate the opportunity to be involved and share this chance to explain our perspective, because there is so much to drought that our network are really grappling with, and also interested in finding solutions toward better understanding and integration of that knowledge into management for various reasons. And so the first one would be, of course, we all know this. I know this audience knows this, but it's really the nature of the ubiquity of drought. Drought is a pervasive issue. It affects all of us, nearly the entire United States at various points. It impacts our economies, agriculture, ecosystems, municipalities, water supply and industry. And, of course, having effective research and solutions really hold the potential to benefit a broad range of communities and stakeholders nationwide. So another opportunity that we see here with supporting the study is to underscore the importance of sound data and science. And especially in this day and age, there's so much work to be done around exemplifying reliable data and reliable, robust scientific analysis, and what the applications and the benefits of that are for understanding drought dynamics, forecasting future drought conditions, and then informing management decisions. And then, of course, as climate variability increases and the stakes for water resource management rise, the need for accurate and up-to-date information is ever more important. And then, of course, this last point I want to bring up, because it does highlight the role that the Interstate Council on Water Policy plays, which is we are practitioners of sound water resource management. And science informs the policies, and it has everything to do with a feedback loop that really, poses important implications for the work that we do. And so when you're putting it into the context for climate uncertainty and for the implications on practical resource decision making, that really, of course, it touches all of us. And so, the uncertainties in drought prediction itself is really something that is impactful for water resource management, and it can make it particularly challenging. And then recognizing and addressing these uncertainties is vital for developing flexible strategies at the practitioner scale. So the next part to what I want to talk about is challenges that we are facing within our field of water resources management. And some of it may not be a surprise to you. And I know that the study is really trying to tackle some of this, but the first one, of course, is data limitations. And, that applies to the scale of deployable equipment to inform water resource management, such as, how information can be conveyed for the agricultural sector versus water supply for municipalities. So I think we're all aware there are data gaps, and I know the study is thinking about that, but due to limited monitoring infrastructure, particularly at local scales, and that's something that we deal with quite a bit, that are relevant for agricultural users, for example, versus larger scale municipal or industrial systems. And recognizing the fact that there is really, the lack of granular real-time data in many places throughout the country, which hinders the ability for timely and informed management decisions, and especially in regions with few resources to be able to deploy that information. The next area for challenges for practitioners that I want to highlight, which renders our interest in the study, of course, is differences in the definition of drought. I bet you all are aware, and especially our colleagues over at NIDIS. This is certainly something that everyone in this space grapples with. But drought can be defined in multiple ways. For example, is it hydrological, meteorological, agricultural, socioeconomic? And of course, the most relevant definition really depends on the stakeholder group and your audience. But having variability in this context can lead to inconsistencies in communication for the practitioner side of things, and policy making, and then various responses to how to manage it. And of course, that makes it really important to clarify definitions for each intended audience. And then the last piece I want to highlight too, that's a challenge for us, is decision-making constraints. We really work within the policy, especially the policy-making field, when it comes to water resources management. But in a broader sense, the time frame for water users to respond to drought conditions often doesn't really align with regulatory processes. And so, for example, in the agricultural sector, ranchers and farmers might need to adjust irrigation rapidly, but then the regulatory agencies may operate on a slower process, less flexible timeline. And then, of course, thinking about how we can bridge these gaps is really, of course, a long-term challenge, especially in drought management. So then the last piece here is I hope to be helpful in providing you some perspective on how we would really like to see this study either develop the framework for or come up with recommendations when it comes to non-stationarity of drought. And that is the first one, I'd just say, to elevate the importance of decision-making space challenges. So again, back to that practitioner side of things, we really would like to see some contemplation to the complexities and constraints faced by water resource managers due to mismatches between the timing of drought onset, availability of data, and regulatory or institutional decision cycles, and then addressing these challenges to help improve responsiveness and resilience. I know NIDIS is really in that space, but perhaps when it comes to the non-stationarity side of things, there may be a place where you can contemplate that. The next section would be, we would recommend addressing the temporal categories of drought, the ongoing challenge there, which is, the different types of drought: short-term, seasonal, multi-year drought, and their distinct impacts that require tailored management approaches. And then emphasizing the need to distinguish between these temporal categories will support more effective planning and response strategies. And then lastly, two more things. So assessing changing hydrologic dynamics, that's kind of the crux, of course, of this study. So shifts in weather patterns and conditions are altering our traditional expectations on drought behavior, and thinking about these evolving dynamics and their implications for monitoring, forecasting, and mitigation. And then lastly, we would recommend contemplating a proposed framework that provides context to inform drought outlooks and forecasting and our understanding of drought. So think about information that would help us understand how to incorporate local context and recent trends, and then of course the emerging science to enhance the relevance and utility of drought outlooks. And then using that framework, or thinking about ways that how we might translate technical findings into actionable guidance for diverse stakeholders, of course, in the context to non-stationarity. So I am happy to provide some answers to your questions in the best capability I can. I wish I had a little bit more the board here. The timing just didn't work out for today, but I'm more than happy to be an ongoing resource to the committee and to the work that you do, so that we can continue to provide insight into where on the application side of things there might be some more information that I could help you. Um, and I'd hate to put Danny on the spot, but Danny, if you would like to weigh in, and you're more than welcome to, I think now would be a good time.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Thank you all so much for giving us this time and giving us a little piece of participation in this process. This is great to have our voice involved. So no, I think Beth did a great job. She really laid out the high level issues that we face with the ICWP represents so many interests from the west to the east coast, and we all manage our water in completely different ways, and we have different challenges when it comes to drought. And even here in Metro Atlanta, two neighboring communities have much different responses to drought based upon the watershed that they're relying on and the size of the reservoir. So we just can see so much local issues with drought that we really need an approach that recognizes the changing climate, recognizes the increased heat and the intensity that that poses to our water demands on these small systems that on the East Coast we often rely on. Even though we get lots more rain than the West Coast, we're just as vulnerable because we often have much smaller watersheds. So water is local. That's my main point I'll share. And thank y'all so much for the time. And I'm going to have to jump in just a second because I'm picking up kids, but thank y'all.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate
Great,
it.
thanks.
Rich,
So
yeah, go ahead.
just going to jump in and say this is a great time for the committee to, you clearly hit on, we're looking at our statement of task and hit on a lot of things that we are contemplating now. So we'd like to go to a time where if committee members could just raise hands if you have a question, and I would just ask you to be concise so we can get to as many questions as we have. Richard.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Very, very informative. I do have some questions, actually two questions about the implications of uncertainty and the hydrologic dynamics. So the implications of uncertainty, you mentioned climate uncertainty, practical resource decision-making uncertainty about drought prediction. Could you elaborate a little bit more about uncertainty and the hydrologic dynamics? You mentioned them in context of shifts in weather patterns, drought behavior changing. Could you also elaborate a little bit on that, such as maybe the hydrologic system is changing, rain into groundwater, soil, moisture, that stream flow? If you could elaborate upon those two things, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think I would put it in a context to the manager side of things, because again, ICWP consists of those in this space who are either managing the regulatory frameworks or the implementation of water supplies through reservoir management, for example. And the uncertainty, meaning I think you hear a lot in this space about the new norm, and where we thought certain patterns or certain predictability under outputs of conditions might produce drought conditions, and then therefore it would a trigger would happen. It's really not happening in this space anymore. And so I think a challenge from the practitioner side is really understanding how those pieces will fit together in something that is becoming the new normal. And that new normal tends to not provide those reliable answers or indicators in ways that we thought it used to be. So it has everything to do with how the managers are going to approach that with more flexibility and within a better understanding of what the kind of dynamics are that we're dealing with in this space in context to drought. And Danny, maybe you might want to add something. I see you're still here.
Yeah, I think our local flavor in Atlanta is that, the droughts that we've had historically that we look back on were typically on the order of a year plus that would kind of roll in slowly and we'd experience it and then we'd kind of roll out of it, or maybe have a tropical storm that gets us out. But now our challenges are that we have a longer shoulder season for the summer. So we have higher water demands happening earlier in the summer and going into as late as October. Because the temperatures are warmer and people are irrigating their lawns longer. So our stress on our reservoirs is a little bit greater across the year. And that coupled with we're getting more, the term flash drought is obviously, the new big hot term, but we've had the first month in my lifetime that we had 0 inches of rain in Metro Atlanta this last year. And I know that happens in other parts of the country, but here that's really impactful. When we get 0 inches of rain, it drops our reservoirs at a much rapid pace. And we're seeing that in September right now too. We just got our first rain in 30 days today, and that just didn't used to happen. So that puts stress. These flash droughts are happening here, and we didn't used to see those in the past. And our drought rules at the state level haven't caught up to that yet, and they're trying to grapple with how to deal with that rapid onset drought.
Thanks,
And
Danny.
the hydrologic dynamics, could you elaborate a bit more on that? Is that just the way the weather patterns are shifting and how it's changing the drought behavior, or are you thinking more in terms of how it's impacting reservoirs, groundwater, stream flow, that kind of thing?
Kind of both. I mean, I guess the example I would give from my own personal, familiarity with the West, the snowmelt driven systems, of course, is earlier snowmelt means changing supplies and when reservoirs can fill. And then if they, of course, that has everything to do with like the irrigation season and how long supplies might be available. And then also when irrigators can tap into the reservoir supplies. And in the regulatory side of things, the use for the water is predetermined by permits. And so if you have a reservoir that's set aside for supplemental supply and you don't capture it when it's coming off the mountain in a timely manner and it flows through, you don't have access to those supplies when you really do need it. So that's one example, at least in the Mountain West and snowmelt driven systems.
Trent?
Yeah, Beth, Danny, thanks for the great presentation. Thanks for the time you're taking on your busy schedules for this. Just to get an idea of what are some of the most important sources of information that your members rely on for drought decision making? And when thinking about the challenges, and Danny, you laid out some of those, if this report delivers on what you're hoping it does, are those challenges that can be addressed more in the day-to-day operations space or the long-term adaptation planning space?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Danny.
No, go ahead, Beth.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that's a really good point that you've like brought up as a challenge, I think, and also to better understand so that you know what kind of work and information we rely upon. So I would have to get back to you on specifics, but I do know, at least from my experience, the federal data that can be supplied through USGS stream gauges and our CS stream flow forecasts, the federal products are very, very important. And of course, there's a cooperative nature to that where, states also have their own instrumentation and data sets and capabilities. But I know our entire network do really underscore the importance of having that federal information to help in real-time decision making. And then, the skill set and the capacities are different depending on where you are as well. And so in some states where you can't fund the analysis components, they do rely on those federal products. So I could certainly, if you think that would inform the study where you are now, to get more like a granular list on how those data sets are obtained and analyzed, just a couple of examples there, I'd be happy to pull some together and get it over to the committee.
I would love to see it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
I'll just say yes. All of the federal resources are part of what goes into decision making for the Georgia's state regulators when they declare drought, and it's a long suite list of all the USGS gauges in the state, lake levels, and drought severity index. All those federal pieces go together. Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick, the second one is, do you see these challenges that you all laid out, especially with non-stationarity of drought, as more of a problem for, day-to-day kind of planning day-to-day operations, or kind of the longer term planning and adaptation to these changes? Or both?
Both.
Yeah,
Most definitely both.
it's both. But you know, we've always heard through these national conversations that, you know, the best thing you've got going for you is your 10-day forecast. At least here in Georgia, that's the best thing we can do is 10-day forecast. After that, it's a coin flip. If they're saying that the next 3 months are going to be higher, likely or higher, whatever, it's still a coin flip. So all we can really rely on is the next 10-day weather forecast. And even then, the showers that are predicted sometimes don't land where that we want them to. So it's harder and harder to make those management decisions with a lot of faith. So
Thank you.
Christy.
Hi, Beth. Hi, Danny. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just have a quick question for you. I'm wondering how important to you and your water manager members are the underlying causes of non-stationarity?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I would say on the management side of things, I don't know. I think understanding the drivers, because they may inform decision making and policy making decisions is important, but ultimately it's the outcomes and how we interact with the information that we have that is really important. You know, you can still permit all you want, but if there's, you know, changing conditions that you don't have enough water for anyway, I mean, it kind of changes what you do on the ground. But I don't know if that would really change. I think we have conversations about the context of, you know, why things are happening in various applications in this field. And I think just underscoring the importance of that knowledge and education is important. But I think that's good. I'd like to contemplate that a little bit more because, you know, I wonder if there's a component to why you're asking that really could be addressed, that I could really drill down and get some better answers for you on.
Beck?
Yeah, thank you. It's really great to have you involved with this study and helping us make sure that we're addressing what the states need, not just our beloved friends in the federal system. I thought it was interesting that Danny brought up the idea that it's a coin flip after 10 days, after already talking about the extension of the hot season in Atlanta, because we know that you're going to get an earlier summer and a later summer now with almost perfect confidence, because we know that warming is going to continue with almost perfect confidence, and that means understanding that underlying cause is a very useful thing. You know, the same thing out west, where you live, Beth, I think it sounds like, where I used to live for a long time. Probably half of the flow reduction in the Colorado River, half of the 20% is due to warming temperatures. Again, we know that with almost perfect confidence that will continue, and therefore will continue to be a contributor to reduced flows. And it seems like that kind of information is pretty useful for decision making.
Mm.
yeah, I'd say I would love to see some more you know, science on the trends on warming temperatures. And you know, they say that every degree rise in degrees Celsius holds another 7% more water in the atmosphere. It's like that's real stuff, and it really does mean something to water managers when they hear that. And looking at trends and expected trends is very helpful for us to put that into context for our water managers.
Great, thanks. Looking for any additional questions? with that, and we are at our time. I really want to again thank you not only for your support, but for being a face of some of the many users of the work that we're trying to do here, and the hard questions that we're trying to answer. And Beth, I thank you for your offer for some follow-up. I already see a nodding from some members that will be coming back with some additional detail on some of the questions that were asked. Also want to note October 14th, we have a next information gathering session that's focused on users and at multiple levels. So encourage you to spread the word about that. And hope to see this broader group on October 14th as well to continue the conversation.
Great. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. And it was really an honor to be able to have this platform to be able to provide you some insights on
Yeah,
what we see as important. So thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you all.